the morning
Yeah.
here in the US, and today is going to be a nice day, and we are very excited to ship our new feature to you. So basically, as you know, with Eduling AI, we want students to be able to use English with the AI to complete tasks. There are many tasks that you can do in your target language, like just chatting, doing a small talk, or you may want to solve a problem or play a game with AI. So, one task that I often talk about is the animal guessing game. But we know that there are a lot of students who need to produce a longer stretch of speech or need to write, and especially students preparing for the IELTS exam. So on the app, we have quite a few IELTS courses, like the IELTS Speaking a Complete course. We also have an IELTS Speaking focusing on part two, when you have to give 2-minute speeches, which are feared by many students. And then we also have IELTS Writing Task 1, describing graphs and charts in IELTS Writing Task 2, where you have to write longer essays. And with these longer pieces of language, students want more detailed feedback. And many students and teachers have been asking for score prediction because when you know roughly your score, then you know what to focus on and how you can improve. So I'm happy to share that that feature is there for you. If you record a 2-minute speech, you're going to have a score prediction as well as some other metrics that we think are interesting for you to explore. One metric, and I can show you, and I can use a very technical term, but I can also explain in simple words. So when you produce language, we also look at vocabulary richness. That's a term that you can use, or in IELTS, it is called lexical resource. They want to know whether you can use uncommon vocabulary items, idiomatic expressions, and how rich or how wide your vocabulary range is. And one way of measuring this is using what is called type token ratio. Maybe there's some teachers here who understand this type token ratios. When you produce a piece of language, you can count every individual, all the words that you produce. That's the token. And the type is the unique words that you use. So if your ratio is high, let's just say more than 0.5, then that's actually pretty good for speaking. But on the app, we explain it more in a more easy to understand term. We use unique words over total words. So you're going to see that as well. And of course, grammar is important. So we have grammar corrections, and you can tap on the errors to see corrections. That is something I haven't seen out there in the market at all. That's something that teachers do all the time, but technologically, I haven't seen it. And then what else, Nick? You can chime in terms of some of the features you have found interesting in language learning that we just added.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most technically complicated thing we've done. The TBLT dialogue agent we made, I mean, it's complicated in its own right because it's trying to do interaction-based corrective feedback moves, but it's basically a state machine that categorizes your error and then responds appropriately if understanding isn't if it's clear that like understanding is broken down or the person made a grammatical error and it wants to give you feedback implicitly. So that was complicated, but it still fundamentally relied on using the language model in the correct way at the correct time. But this one, we basically put a whole NLP stack behind it. So there's a
Nick,
process. Mhm.
explain state machine and NLP.
Sorry. Was that a comment?
No, no, it's
Oh,
I'm just I know that
okay,
some
yeah, yeah.
audience here is not technical, so
No, the state machine is basically uh, think of it like a traffic light, right? A traffic light has um, basically 3 or 4 different states. There's stop, there's go, there's the yellow light when you're supposed to slow down, and maybe there's a turn signal, right? And the light is only ever in a single state. right? Meaning it's only ever in the red light state or it's only ever in the green light state. It shouldn't be simultaneously. If it's in both, you have a problem. But cars respond appropriately based on the states of these traffic lights, right? And the ones that are in a cross street have to be synchronized with the ones that are on the lane that you're in, because you don't want cars to, one lane to be both lanes to be green and then cars hit each other, right? So that synchronization is basically a state machine, right? So the light is only ever in a certain state and the other light is in the required complementary state. So in our system, it's basically, if you're so for instance, like when it does recasts, right? So it just reframing the input in a grammatically correct form as a way to just sort of like hint to the learner that something might be off about what they said. There is a state in the system which is entirely dedicated to responding to recasts, and there's one for like maybe 10 different types of corrective feedback moves. So when the system responds, it's going to be in one of those states, and that's the idea. So it's not just like there's an agent and you're just talking to it. It's got a whole complex array of like little sub agents that are dedicated to responding to specific types of learner errors, in quotes. But so in this case, yeah, natural language processing is NLP. So for instance, when we calculate your type token ratio, the first thing is you say something. So if you use the spoken mode where you're giving a 2-minute speech, you're recording it. That recording is then sent to an automatic speech recognizer, or ASR. The recognition is going to be the transcript, the written words that you said. And from those written words, we then do a series of things to generate all this data about your response. So in order to determine your type token ratio, we have to take the sentence and then we have to break it into its component words. And in English, words are separated by spaces, but this is kind of a naive approach, and there's good reasons that we could talk to that are far more complicated than maybe we can get into here. But we use something called a tokenizer, which is basically a tool that breaks a string of text into its component words, right? And linguistically, what a word is even like a not always as solid a concept as you'd like it to be. Like we kind of look at text and think, oh, those are words. But like when you hear a spoken recording, right, the word boundaries are we intuit what they are, but they're actually not visible in the acoustic signal. So for instance, like as I'm talking, all of my words are bleeding together. I'm not actually breaking between each of them and like audibly making the sound of a space or a gap between words. So continuous speech has this quality. So once we get the speech recognition output, right, you get a transcript, and then from that transcript we break it into the tokens, and then based on those tokens, we then have to basically count how many unique words are in this, and then how many total words are in this. And the type token ratio is just the ratio of those two numbers. So that's one thing. But in addition to that, we also do some additional processing. For instance, something called lemmatization, which is basically finding the root of a word. So the phrase is, or so like if I say like he is tall, right? Is a form of the verb to be, right, which is irregular and has like it's are, am, is, etc. And so those lemmatizations help us collapse certain words, because sometimes you don't want to count things more often than they need to be counted, because sometimes two different surface forms, or like what gets expressed in the transcript, are actually the same word, just written in slightly, well, not written in slightly, but they're different forms of it. So the lemmas will be the same.
Right.
So we do some pruning of the text to make sure that like we're actually counting truly unique words in your transcript. And then from that, we do we're doing something that's actually, I think, kind of unique because we're not we're not relying purely on like a grammatical analyzer here, right? There are tools that will just say like this is, you know, it'll just help you detect where grammatical errors are in a transcript or a sentence. Um, we're actually looking more for revisions, right? So in our case, what we actually do is we, you know, we prompt our agents to figure out what's a revision for a given sentence. So we break the transcript of your speech into sentences, and for each sentence, we then ask, is this sentence in context grammatical? Does something need to be changed? And what would be an ideal revision that would make this a little bit easier to understand, or what would make it better for like natural sounding or professional sounding speech, right? And this is something that language models are actually quite good at. I mean, there is like a lot of problems where they sort of homogenize everyone's speech to sound in a certain way, but in terms of taking a sentence and just giving you a revision that preserves as much of the word choice as possible, but is uh, better grammatically, flows better, has fewer breaks. You get rid of like back channels like ums and ahs and filler words and things like that, or overly complicated nuances and fragments and things like that. Oftentimes these happen in spoken language and we don't even notice it. Um, but in like a formal setting, like an IELTS question, you actually want to have like what is the ideal version of this sentence in the context of an IELTS exam. So once we get that, then we have basically what you said, and then we have the ideal revision. And to make there's a, I mean, you'll see it in a second, but like the user interface where you can see the corrections, we then align the transcripts together and come up with like the minimal set of corrections that you would have to make to adjust what you said and into the recommended change. And then we also have like an explanation for here's why, because of, you know, subject verb agreement or some other grammatical reason. So it's like a whole slew of feedback that we generate in combination with using some AI tools, but also a bunch of very old school classical NLP tools that have kind of been used way less often these days. Oftentimes people just like let the models decide, but no, we wanted it to be accurate, number one. And then we also have this bit that does the IELTS and CEFR score computation, which we can talk about in a bit because it's
Yeah,
a beta feature. There's a lot of asterisks on it, and in terms
yeah,
of like how accurate it actually is. But maybe we
yeah.
want to move on with the demo.
Yes.
Sorry, that was a
So, I
long
mean,
blurb.
no, that's very interesting. And you and I are the same that we like talking about technical stuff. It's just that everything we do, there's so much knowledge behind, and this is maybe a good thing for the listeners and for the students here as well. Every piece of linguistic knowledge that you gain may be useful later in the future when you work in something like this. Everything that I learned in school, in college, in graduate school, knowledge about phonetics, grammar, vocabulary, very useful. Nick just mentioned that these days, sometimes people just rely on the model or on the LLM to do whatever they want to do. But if you want to be more accurate, you need to put a lot of knowledge in fine-tuning it. So all the concepts that Nick just explained and I just mentioned, I think are useful for us to push the AI to do better. So without further ado, I can show it to you how it looks on the app. And I'm gonna go to an IELTS course.
Just for anybody who might be confused, the first language on your phone is currently set to Vietnamese.
Oh, okay. Let me make sure that my first language. Oh, yes. So I set my first language to Vietnamese because I also want to show some translation features there. So we
Yeah.
have this IELTS Speaking a Complete course. And then I'm gonna try this IELTS Speaking Part 2 speech, and I'm gonna try to do it like a learner, maybe making some errors, which is difficult for us sometimes because
Yes,
we
it's very
stop
hard.
stop to think about errors. But I'm good at babbling, like rambling. My dream
It's the
house.
one that has the
Yeah,
the pink microphone.
yeah.
where it is, what rooms and facilities it has, how it is decorated, and explain why it is your dream house.
My dream house would be one on the beach with a lot of window around the house.
It is very hard to spontaneously make grammatical errors
You have
if
Yeah.
you're a
started to
native
describe
speaker.
your dream house well, mentioning the beach and windows. You can add more details about the rooms and why it's your dream. Click Overview for more feedback.
Okay, so this is the new thing that Nick and I just talked about. Now, based on your speech, you're gonna see some metrics, right? So if you click on this, you're gonna see the task performance and some of the metric here, accuracy. And like
Mhm.
I said, I didn't do a good job with the speech, so I got a 4.0 here. See here the correction. You can see when I say my dream house would be one on the beach with a lot of window around. It should be housed, it should be a house or something like that. So you can see that here with the correction, you can click on it to see the corrections and it is right here in your original
Mhm.
sentence. And you can also see the explanation here, and you can also change it to Vietnamese to read it. I know this is a lot of information, but sometimes students want to know why, right? Then you can see the revised transcript there. Um,
Yeah, this is a good example. Can we go back real quick
yes.
to the last so at the bottom,
Mm.
so it says the weather there would be pleasant. So
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of the difference, what I was saying, where like we're not just using a grammatical analyzer to say why something is wrong, because a lot of times people are going to make fragmented sentences, or there may be an incomplete thought in the transcript, and what it's actually doing is offering a a revision, right? So in this
Mm-hmm.
case, it looks like in the original transcript, maybe it just you just said the weather there, maybe at the end, um, and so it's just suggesting would be pleasant
Yeah.
as an addition to that. So it's doing more than giving you, like, it will correct the grammar. That is
Mm-hmm.
one of the sort of side benefits to that, how it works, but it also is going to give you a suggested reframing or a way to complete the sentence, and it's contextualized.
Right.
So that's actually a pretty cool thing, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And then also this one, maybe it is used, I mean, it's useful to a certain extent when you look
Mhm.
at your vocabulary analysis. For your IELTS exam, you want to use more uncommon words or less common words, right? And so
Mhm.
in my speech, I use very common words and less common words, but I don't have anything in orange. So that will also give me a lower score. Now, something that I also really like is that you can keep talking with the AI to ask it to give you more suggestions. So, for example, here I can turn on our live mode, which is something that we also think that is a great feature. And so if you want to keep talking, you can say, can you give me some suggestions for better sentences?
Yes, I can help with that. Let's look at your sentences. You said, my dream house would be one on the beach with a lot of window around. This is a good start. Do you have any questions about this sentence?
Is it a good sentence? Are there any errors?
That's a good question. This sentence is mostly good. There's just one small thing, a lot of window around. We usually say a lot of windows, plural, because you probably want more than one window. Or a lot of glass, if you mean the material. Do you understand why windows is better here?
Yes, it should be plural. Do you have any suggestions for ideas that I can talk about?
That's a great question. The prompt asks for a few things. 1. Where it is. You said on the beach, which is perfect. 2. What rooms and facilities it has. You haven't talked about this yet. 3. How it is decorated. This is also something new to talk about. 4. Why it is your dream house. You started this with nice view of the ocean and pleasant weather. So we can talk about the rooms next. What rooms do you imagine in your dream house?
Okay, so I'm not going to
So you
go through
can,
all of this, yeah, but you can keep talking and get spend as much time as you need to have a better speech. And like I say, this is just a demo, so I didn't use my language, but for me to truly practice something, it is something that I find delightful and enjoyable to do because it's convenient, it's right on the app. Our AI responds very fast now, and I feel like that is perhaps one of the biggest benefits and updates that we launched about a month ago. But when you
oh wait,
save this,
I was
yes,
gonna,
yes,
uh,
I can go back to. Oh, you were
well,
gonna.
I was going to point out that while you're looking at the feedback screens, like the overview and the
Mm, mm,
corrections and the vocab
mm.
analysis, the dialogue box at the bottom is still there. So you can be looking at your feedback and be talking to it about it. So that's something
Right.
that, at least when I was testing it, I thought that was kind of cool because like you
Yeah.
can look at, so you can say like, what was going on with sentence two? What did I, mistake I made?
Yeah.
And it explains it, but if you have additional questions, you can
Yeah,
get
yeah,
those
that's what
answered.
Nick was talking about. That if, as you look on this, I'm actually showing you the history. So we save everything for you to revisit. And if, as you look at the history here, you can ask questions like, what's my total number of words? Is it a good number? Or what is
Mhm.
my IELTS score? Why do I get that? You can also look at the corrections, and as you look at it, you can keep asking questions with the AI, and still, you can still have a conversation. So I like it a lot. And if you explore other tasks on the app, we like the idea of having you something to talk about, right?
Mhm.
Either a game, a task, or a picture to talk about, a video. Now you can also watch a video and talk about it with Eduling AI. But I just want to show that you can also look at everything that has been saved here for you, and you can look at the conversation as well.
On the overview.
Yes, you want to see the overview?
So it gave you an A2. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I was going to say we should note that the CEFR and IELTS estimates are, I mean, it does say beta, that it is not a like not going to be a perfectly 100% accurate score where
Mm,
we take like the scale and try to bucket you into one of those, but we find that it probably overestimates your scores on the low end and
mm,
underestimates your scores at the high end.
yeah.
This is a common problem with features where you kind of take the transcript and give it the rubric for IELTS scoring and ask a model to give you the response. So we're thinking about building something that actually like really looks at all of the stats from your response and gives you a much more accurate score that we can
Hmm.
tailor to um, comport with human assessments. But like, so
Yeah,
that's just a caveat. It's take it with a grain of salt.
yeah. But I actually want to point out that it is doing better than if you just ask ChatGPT or Gemini directly.
Yeah.
And we say this because we look at over 1,000 IELTS essays out there available on the internet. And we
Mhm.
can also say that this is absolutely a common problem in using AI to assess students' language. It's correct with the IELTS that is not doing very well yet. It's also correct with native speakers
Mhm.
essays. But
Yeah.
I can tell you that because we worked on it, our correlation is better. We just want to be cautious that you should not use this to make high-stake decisions. You should use it for learning. And you can maybe, if you go to the IELTS course that we have on the app, we have over 100 speeches for you to practice. So you can see a pattern and a trend, and that's what I would recommend. And then definitely Nick and I are gonna keep working on the score prediction so that we can also use the linguistic features together with the model predictions to achieve higher accuracy. But if anyone out there telling you that they can predict your score accurately using the common AIs out there, be cautious. It's not true. We
Yeah.
see it with our own eyes, with our own data. And when I went to a presentation at TESOL, there was a research report that drew so much attention, and they found exactly the same thing, and their correlation was way worse than ours. It's not a critique on their research. It's just how it is. So I know Nick and I can go technical in many things, but we are excited about what we just built and released because our focus has always on learning, right? Assessment is part of it, but our focus has always been on providing you opportunities for you to improve and to learn language. And something that also really great that you can try is that we have the 20-day free trial for you to take advantage of. So try it out.
Mentioned something about the task completion. Yeah, so the core thing, right? Because again, Eduling is based on task-based language teaching, right? So the key metric in the assessment of tasks is, sort of like a can-do statement, but in our case, it's like, have you met all of the criteria of the task? And in this case, I mean,
I want to show you something else that I did, maybe a previous, I tried a lot.
Okay.
Let's see. I hope this is, I have one that talked about Ho Chi Minh. Maybe a
Okay,
better.
yeah. So you got a 10 out of 10 on that one.
Oh yes, talk about my task completion there. Yes.
Right. So it is out of 10. So it's basically but the score just to be clear. So it's a combination of, did you complete all of the requirements of the task? Because like one of the requirements of TBLT is that you have to use your own linguistic resources to answer the task. So if you complete it, right? Like if you answer all of the parts, or you actually successfully accomplish the task, you get a base score. And the delta between that and like a perfect score is based on your grammatical accuracy. So you see that in Lynn's case, she has a 96% accuracy there, which basically, ends up bumping it up to the 10. That's just how it gets bid. So a combination of completing all of the requirements of the task, plus being accurate and at the right pace for a somebody it looks like they gave you a C1 and that one. So that's how that's assessed there. So that's actually like a very important, I mean, the other ones are more like standardized metrics, but TBLT has this, essential requirement that, like, did you complete the task? Did you use your linguistic resources to accomplish the expectations of a certain task? So
right. Yeah. So task
something we want to
performance.
emphasize.
Yeah. We can talk about all these metrics as well, but task performance has to do with whether you have addressed all parts of the prompts, right? But we also add in other features to see maybe how accurate you are as you do it, or whether you have produced enough language to do that. And I think these, we call them linguistic features, can be used to later on fine-tune the IELTS score, Nick, because I know from research that speed correlates the best with proficiency. I mean, of course, we have to be cautious when we do all these things, but please feel free to ask questions in the comment section, and we would be happy to get back to you or think about our future live events. So thank you. Try it out and let us know.